Hello, welcome to the Team Draft Super League. Tonight we're playing for a spot in the finals against the We Them Boys team. I'm Reed Duke here with Matt Severa. How's it going, Matt?
All right.
So far your team is up 2-0. I saw you had a pretty nice looking Bant deck with two River Hopos and a Sifter Worm.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah, how'd your match go against Huey?
Pretty well. I think his draws were kind of bad. In game one, he smashed me with that Sphinx that has embalmed the 5/3, and then he had the other one, the cycle a card, give something -2/-0, and I just couldn't deal with those. But games 2 and 3, I think he got pretty flooded, so it worked out.
Well, this round we're going to watch Huey playing against your teammate Justin Cohen. Looked like Justin had a white-green deck, which I don't know. How did your team feel about your decks in general and Justin's deck in particular?
I think Sam's deck is pretty great. I didn't really get a lot of time to look at Justin's deck. He didn't sound super confident, so
my first instinct at just scrolling over the lists is that you and Sam have very good decks, and Justin just has a middle of the road deck, like what you expect out of a team draft, sort of.
Yeah, doesn't look super exciting from here.
Yeah, he's got a green-white deck with like pretty good creature base and a couple of sandblasts. So yeah, just a normal-looking deck. And Huey's deck is fairly normal-looking too. So this should be a good match where I think either player can win.
Right.
Meanwhile, my match against Sam was pretty close. I thought I had him on the ropes in game 3 because he had I think he played Mountain, and then passed on turn 4 without a land or a second color of mana. But From that point, he assembled the ultra combo of Trial of Zeal plus Cartouche of Zeal, and none of my creatures could block really for the rest of the game against that and an on-crop Crasher.
Yeah,
and he ended up taking it down.
Yeah, it's tough to deal with. So yeah, I thought Sam's deck did look pretty good and aggressive. So
yeah, definitely like pretty good shell with 2 on-crop Crashers as just the cherry on top. At any rate, this is a rematch of the very first round that we played at the Team Draft Super League, and you guys beat us there as well. We're hoping for some revenge, but so far the night is not going the way we wanted. Yeah. At least the matches. We were pretty happy with our decks as well, but it seemed like just a draft where everyone was able to put together something pretty workable.
Yeah, it looked like the packs were pretty strong. I mean, at least things were going my way. So, and I was passing good cards.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, you were passing to me, and what was your first pick of the draft? Was it that Sifter Worm?
Yep.
Okay. Because Matt passed me a pack that had an uncommon missing, and it had a Bane Whip Punisher, which not the best, but one of the strongest non-rare cards. So I perhaps jumped a little too far to the conclusion that it was likely you'd taken a Sand Strangler.
Okay.
And then
and so shipping you red, and maybe you ship some of it through.
Funny enough, my draft was I thought very straightforward. Like I just was basically mono red for the whole draft until I got a red rare, or sorry, mono black is what I meant to say. But until I got a red rare in pack 3. But just from the perspective of trying to read the draft, I had misjudged that first pick situation a little bit, and might have cost us. Well, that aside, let's get ready to head down to the match. Watch William Huey Jensen against Justin Cohen. Welcome back to the Team Draft Super League semifinals here, playing for a spot in the finals. Team Madison up 2-0 over my team, Peach Garden Oath. And right now we're watching William Jensen against Justin Cohen. It looks to me like Justin's on the play, but neither player with a terribly exciting opening hand.
Nope.
Huey may keep his on the back of cycling cards, but Justin has to mulligan, and he found a keepable hand, but 6 mana sources.
Not super exciting, but I do think you probably have to keep, although, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know that he was playing the countervailing winds main. I mean, I suppose I could look at his list now, but I thought that he sided them in against me for sure.
Countervailing winds, one of Huey's pet cards in this format. He likes it a lot.
Good to know.
Okay, so Winged Shepherd. We don't know what Justin did with his Scry, but that's a pretty solid, draw. It's slow, but that will be something to sink his mana into, and once he gets the Pyramid of the Pantheon active, he can cast it right away.
So if you're Justin, do you give any consideration to just charging the Pyramid here instead of playing the Naga?
Yeah, in fact, that's what I would have done, because just with what he has in his hand, the Pyramid coming active on turn 4 it would be turn 5 that it is able to tap for 3 mana, right?
Sure. I mean, it's just an extra, it's an extra turn of Pyramid when the Naga doesn't necessarily buy you anything, but it looks like it paid off. He did draw a 4-drop that he's going to get to turn early.
But yeah, just to finish the thought, the reason I would have done it is because just with what he has in his hand, like assuming he doesn't draw another land, he can cast the Shepherd 1 turn earlier this way. Or I mean, if he had charged the Pyramid. So just sort of like playing it safe, I would have done it. But this has worked out much better, and it looks like if the Ritualist lives, he'll be able to cast the Shepherd on time anyway.
Right. He doesn't really even need that mana.
So Pyramid of the Pantheon, this game will probably be mostly mana fixing, and the one card that it combos especially well with in Justin's deck is Cut Ribbons off the splash.
Yep.
Not only allowing to cast both sides, but also just plus three mana for his Fireball.
Right, and it looks like he's got a Sifter Worm at least, and yeah, not a ton of other stuff where he's going to need the mana, but... Yeah, meanwhile, Huey's draw just looks pretty clunky.
Yeah, he's drawn his cards in the wrong order, finding the Oketra's Avenger after he already has other things to spend his mana on. Mm-hmm. Turn 2, he elected to cycle Floodwaters and keep the 2 countervailing winds in hand. Yeah. If he had known this was the way the cards were going to come off the top, I think he may have chosen to cycle one of the winds and keep the Floodwaters.
Right. Yep.
But of course, at the time, having only three mana and countervailing winds being a pretty strong counterspell, it makes a lot of sense what his decision was at the time.
Yeah, and I think the winds are probably pretty good in a vacuum, at least against Justin's deck.
Right. So remember the players. Matt and I didn't have deck lists for our first round, but the players do have deck lists now, so everything's even playing field. There's no surprises. So Huey knows about at least the Sifter Worm in Justin's deck.
Yeah, so I mean, if Huey can get on the board and get some flyers out, it's gonna be tough for Justin to deal with. He's definitely gonna have to peel here, and it's not like Justin's applying a ton of pressure.
Yeah, so I guess Huey here deciding whether he wants to just go ahead and cast Aven Initiate or potentially Oketra's Avenger plus cycling, or I don't think holding up countervailing winds is going to be a great option, because even if Justin has his best spell in hand, he could just play one more land and play around a countervailing winds for 1.
Right. Yep.
I guess Huey also deciding about his attack and potentially exert. Yeah. I think if I was in his shoes, I would just make the straightforward play of casting Aven Initiate.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So how do you like to approach this format? Because, if you read Twitter, there's a lot of people are kind of arguing about what's good and what's not. And honestly, I haven't drafted this like a ton. I practiced like quite a bit for the PT, but I've been tied up with Standard lately.
Well, it's a good question, because we don't have a complete agreement on how to approach this format. Huey is the player on our team with the best results. Like, he won Grand Prix Kyoto right before the Pro Tour. Good showing in the Pro Tour as well. And he really likes drafting slow decks. like either black base control or 5-color green, whatever it might be. But he's not the type of player to go for like a red-white beatdown.
Right. So he and I are in agreement.
Okay, you like playing slow decks as well?
Yeah, that's what I've had the most success with.
Mm-hmm. I think there's like a really wide range of strategies that can be successful, and I have had my best results with the color white, and like usually when I'm playing white, I'm beating down either white, green, white, red, every once in a while white, black zombies. But I don't know, I just think there's a wide range. My deck today is very controlling, like black, lots of removal, 2 sunset pyramids.
Right.
So meanwhile, Huey's draw shaping up a little better. He hit his 5th land on time for Ominous Sphinx, so he would love to just be able to put, an advantage in terms of flying creatures on the board, and then start sitting back on his reactive cards like Countervailing Winds and Unsummon. This here looks like it's going to be a big draw step or 2 draw steps for Justin, because this is a turn where he could stick something like a Sifter Worm, but if he bricks for a while, Huey's going to have control with the counter spells open. So
yeah, it'll just be way too far ahead.
Big moment in the game coming up here. Okay, pretty solid draw for Justin. Not exactly what he wanted, since he doesn't have anything to deal with the Ominous Sphinx yet, but he gets to keep adding to the board, and he does have a couple answers, including 2 Sandblasts and a Cut to Ribbons.
Right.
Thankfully, those cards are pretty cheap, so might be able to circumvent the Countervailing Winds.
Yeah, he'll at least get a turn of charging the pyramid here, but he does need to draw something that's going to interact with that Sphinx.
I'm sure Justin was thinking like, okay, is this a good spot for a bluff attack? Because normally that's the type of situation where it's great to attack when you have low value creatures and your opponent just tapped out completely for like their bomb card. It's a great spot to attack, but I think with Justin having had no cards the previous turn, like Huey just doesn't have enough reason to respect it, and it's probably a bit too risky.
Yeah, I can even look at Justin's deck list here. I guess he is bluffing a couple cards if he attacks there, but it's not super believable, like you said.
Huh, Huey actually attacking into the double Sentinel seems like a good double block for Justin, since he's not even too disappointed with one of the Sentinels going to the graveyard anyway.
Right. Yeah,
a little tougher in the face of the Ominous Sphinx, I suppose, because first strike could kill 1 creature and then just a single cycling card. Okay, makes sense.
So like a triple block here, or quadruple maybe. Triple, I guess.
It's a good block.
Yeah.
I think Huey might be a little disappointed with this result. Or, I mean, not that the Spearmaster was ever going to do much better than trading for one of these creatures, but I think he would have loved to see just a double block.
Right, it would have been a lot easier of a decision at least. So, I mean, yeah, he could still cycle both of these. But he doesn't want to use the Unsummon because he's going to want to deal with the 4/4 when Justin eternalizes it. So
now Huey opted to order the Naga Vitalist first. Not sure which of the 3 creatures is the highest value, but that's a little bit interesting.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not even paying attention. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, although if I'm Huey, I don't, if I have an Unsummon, I don't really mind if one of those things dies and Justin spends his turn, bring it back, but he's got nothing else to do anyway, so.
So Huey drew a pretty cool card that turn, Abandoned Sarcophagus. This is a really long game card where it means basically every card of cycling you draw, you get to have your cake and eat it too, where you cycle it and then cast it later from the graveyard. So very slow card, but if the game does go on indefinitely, it's going to give him a lot of card advantage. Let him recast those counter spells from his graveyard. And even the Floodwaters, that could be big a few turns down the road.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is a great spot for Justin. He drew cut to ribbons, and if Huey didn't have unsummon in his hand, it would, I think, almost be like game over right there. But what's going to happen is Huey's going to bounce the Ominous Sphinx to his hand, but Justin gets to attack for 6 and has a Fireball sitting in his graveyard with a ton of mana.
Right. He can do it for 1, 3, 8. So actually exactsies.
So what that means is that Huey's going to have to man, it's a bad spot. He can beat the ribbons with countervailing winds, but if he casts Abandoned Sarcophagus and passes with 3 mana open, then he just can't beat the board. So this was a great pickup for Justin. I was thinking like the game would start going well for him if he found Sandblast, but this is even better because of the threat the following turn.
Yeah, I didn't even do the math. I didn't realize how like this is just the best draw that he could have drawn.
And I got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, Justin just has a green-white creature deck and has put together like Pyramid of the Pantheon, a really strange, unique card that a lot of people don't even think of. Put it together with cut ribbons to just make like this awesome 2-card combo that's going to win in the game here.
Yeah, and Huey knows he can't. He couldn't even unsummon his guy.
So I guess he's going to unsummon the Oasis Ritualist. And then on his turn, he can either play out 2 blockers, which I think he'll probably do.
Right. And if he draws a land, he can get the Sarcophagus too.
Mm-hmm. I think Huey maybe didn't need to tap so much of his mana on his main phase last turn. Like he got a little bit of value out of the Spearmasters, and he must have figured he's very likely to cycle those cards anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in retrospect, he should have maybe just like not invested so many resources into that play.
Just not opened himself up so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, it's easy for us to say that, having like seen Justin's draw step, but just in general, I think Huey was in a pretty good spot if the game went on for a while, so no need to take an unnecessary risk.
Right.
He did draw land, which was probably the best thing he could have drawn. Now he gets to play out his creatures, and then after that, he'll have access to Floodwaters and countervailing winds. He just needs to keep his life total out of range, basically. It's a tricky dynamic, and I really like the way Huey played with the unsummon, because Justin wants to take his best shot with the cut ribbons whenever Huey taps his mana. But if he doesn't, if he casts it for a non-lethal amount, being a green-white deck with not that much reach, it's like, is he going to be able to get those last 2 or 4 points of damage through? It's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
So tough spot if you're in Justin's seat.
Yeah. So
access to 9 mana here, so he can really only do one thing. We'll trade off here, and then Justin will either replay the Ritualist or Eternalize a Sentinel. Again, nice. a non-lethal cut ribbons doesn't seem like the play here.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I assume he's Eternalizing here, and he's going to force Huey to try to Floodwaters his guy, I guess. Or draw something.
So to recap, Huey has Abandoned Sarcophagus with 3 cycling cards in the graveyard, Countervailing Winds ×2, and Floodwaters. He also has access to an Aven Initiate, but he's got to be really careful not to tap out at the wrong time, especially once Justin gets the Ritualist back into play. So this game is shaping up to be a lot different than I had thought a few turns ago. I thought it was just sort of going to be a creature battle, but that was a lot of bobbing and weaving.
Right. And Huey's played it great with the unsummon. I mean, I just at a glance, it looked like a foregone conclusion. He's going to bounce a Sphinx, of course. Until you think about it, then he just can't.
Yeah, he
later.
can't because I mean he could bounce the Sphinx, but he doesn't have a window to recast it. So better just protect the life total. That's a really tough concept to grasp in limited Magic when you have a really high value card and you have to let it go effectively. Like you have to trade it off at low value. That's a really hard thing for players to be able to do.
It is a hard thing to do.
All right, just a land. So he can Floodwaters away one creature, which it looks like he's going to do. He can also Eternalize the Aven Initiate. But I think this is a good spot to Floodwaters because it puts Justin to the same decision he had last turn. Not a great spot to do cut ribbons, and he's pretty much only going to be able to do one thing, only add one creature to the board.
Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, Justin is 1 mana away from being able to cast the Ritualist and Eternalize the second Sentinel. But I mean, Huey just has to use his mana right here.
Yeah, he could Eternalize the Initiate and try to double block, but then what? He needs something to win the game with.
Yeah.
I think I would have played the land. I think with Abandoned Sarcophagus in play, your normal pattern should be to play the lands because if you draw a cycling card, you're going to want to cycle it, then cast it. And if you draw a second land, you might not have access to as much mana as you want.
Yep. Very true.
Justin drew Shed Weakness, which honestly doesn't change the board state in an immediate way. If he connects against Huey's life total, it's going to turn the cut ribbons lethal either way. It can allow him to win a combat step, especially if Huey's forced to do something like double block.
Right.
But hard to predict exactly how the Shed Weakness is gonna come into play here. It's also weird that it's 1 mana and Countervailing Winds is gonna say like counter unless you pay 6, 7. You know, Justin might be able to pay for that.
Another land for Huey. So I think he's forced to embalm the Initiate, right? So
Yeah, and then double block.
Yeah. And the Shed Weakness is going to not interact with that. I can do math.
Yeah, but the trade is very profitable for Justin even without it, so he can just play another creature, save the Shed Weakness in hand. So Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but your team, Team Madison, has not lost any matches in this league so far. Is that right?
I've lost at least 1 match.
But
are you
I
talking
mean,
about like
you haven't had a losing evening yet.
We have not had a losing evening. I have lost a match, and Sam has, but yeah. You guys are what, 2-1, right? Going into this?
we lost to you, and then battled back to be able to get our rematch.
Yeah.
But our matches have been close too. We're almost eliminated by Scottsdale Foundation. The Paul Rietzel, Dave Williams, Matt Sperling team went to match number 9, game number 3 before Owen actually made a sick comeback to keep us alive. All right, so I think this turn's going to play out how we predicted. Attack, double block, everything trades, play Ritualist, and then Huey's not dead because he has the counter spells ready for ribbons, but he needs to find something to be able to beat the board and then eventually something else to win the game.
Yeah. So if you... Yeah, I was kind of thinking here, if you're Justin and you don't attack, you could fire off the ribbons to put Huey at 2, and then you would be kind of banking that he blanks, and then you could play Ritualist, then both your creatures will be lethal, and you would have enough mana to pay for the countervailing winds.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right, and also Justin doesn't know that Huey has a land in his hand, but it's an alternative.
Yeah, it's very tempting to want to get the ribbons in a nice window like this, because it doesn't seem like Huey's going to have to tap out anymore with a lot of mana and no more expensive things to do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe you wait till the ultra long term where you have, like, 15 mana in play. I don't know. It's weird to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, but yeah. Justin looks like he's thinking about it.
Access to 10 mana here. Put Huey to 2.
Yeah, I mean, if you fire off ribbons right here, Huey can only countervailing wins you for 6. You have 1 million mana, which is, yep, that's what he's doing.
So if Huey blanks, he's going to have to double countervailing winds the Ritualist.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this play from Justin. Nah, that is a blank.
Yeah, it at least turns on his needs deserts things, of which I'm not sure how many he even has. Oh, this is brutal, because Justin's going to cast a creature, Huey's going to double countervailing winds, and then Justin's going to just cast another creature.
Right.
Huey's not... I mean, he has some good draw steps. If he draws something like a big cycling creature, he'll get to cast it, stabilize the board, and cycle it to, keep the juices flowing. He also has some more nice embalm creatures like Glyph Keeper. Yeah, Winged Shepherd would be one of his best draws.
Glyph Keeper would be outstanding here. Not gonna lie.
Jeru's Renunciation is effectively like a time walk because he would get to cycle it and then survive a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the good news, which I had misrepresented, is that if Justin pays for the first countervailing winds, he'll have to wait a turn to play the next creature. So that's one more draw step for Huey at least.
Yes. Yeah, he's going for it. Have you gotten many games in with the sarcophagus before?
No. In fact, Huey and I had a long discussion about that card just a few hours before the team draft today. He told me he really likes it, but I haven't had a chance to play with it. It seems good. It seems like the type of card that you really want in a long game situation like this.
I've seen it be absolutely incredible. I've also had it in decks where my whole deck cycled, but none of my cards did anything, so playing them from the graveyard was useless.
That's pretty funny. There's some cool stuff you can do with cycling in this format. I'm a big fan of the Vile Manifestation.
Yes,
that card like
is... You mean Tarmogoyf?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So that was a good pickup for Huey. He got a cycling card that he'll be able to cash in from the graveyard later. He also drew Consigned to Oblivion, which Justin's done a nice job keeping 2 cards in his hand, but that is a card that can both buy time and provide a little bit of card advantage. Maybe get rid of the Shed Weakness.
Yeah.
Huey will have to go down to very precarious 1 life to cast it, but I don't think, honestly, there's much difference between 1 and 2 in this scenario.
Yeah, this has been a really interesting game. I mean, at first glance, it just looked like Huey was, just had a huge advantage, but
yeah, the
cut to ribbons was so
the cut
good.
ribbons really changed the dynamic, especially when paired with Oasis Ritualist and Pyramid of the Pantheon. But man, remember Justin's opening hand in this game? 6 mana sources.
Yeah, well, it's come in handy.
Yeah, I mean he had the 6-drop Angel, 2 eternalized creatures that got full value, and of course cut ribbons.
Yeah, paying for countervailing wins.
Yeah, paying for countervailing wins. Paying for countervailing wins on turn 10 of the game.
So, yeah.
It would have been really cool to see what Huey had done with Consign to Oblivion if he had drawn it while the ribbons was still in the graveyard, because he does have the option to reset the Pyramid of the Pantheon.
Mm-hmm. Six. So maybe he's thinking about resetting it and then, getting the extra card from that and countering. That still wouldn't give him enough. Yeah, he's just counting.
I think he'll probably just draw his card for the turn before deciding what to do, because he would really love to just draw a creature that trades with the Naga rather than having to bounce it.
Yeah, exactly. That is a creature.
Yeah, perfect. And even better, this was probably the best draw in the deck for Huey, because he gets to cycle it and play a creature that can at least threaten to block the Naga. Probably what will happen is Justin will cast his combat trick and Huey will consign the creature.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, are you, Sam, and Justin going to play together in the Team Grand Prix in Providence?
We are not. Sam is going to Worlds a week early, and Justin can't make the trip. So,
meaning Sam's not going to play in the Grand Prix?
Yeah,
because they are pretty close proximity. Worlds is in Boston.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, he's missing the GP.
Okay, that's dedication. I respect it. Just focus on the bigger event coming up.
Yeah, I know it's going to be weird because it's the new set, right? It's like the week after the pre-release.
Right. The World Championships this time is sort of like what the Pro Tours usually are, where they're 2 weeks after the release of the new set.
Mm-hmm.
Or even, is it 1 week after the release of the new set? I'm not sure.
PTs are
2 weeks after.
Yeah.
All right, so as predicted, the Shed Weakness got cast, the Consign got cast, and the Harrier Naga got replayed. So on Huey's turn, he gets to attack for 3, knock the 2 irrelevant lands out of Justin's hand. Oh wow, that's a great draw. That's
yeah.
Buys him some time, lets him see another card deeper. Huey actually only has 13 cards left in his library. And let's see, 17 land deck. He's got six of those 13 are lands.
Wow, yeah.
Sorry, 5. 5 of those 13. I wouldn't expect there to be danger of decking himself unless he's forced to trade off too many of his big creatures, like to protect his life total. He has already lost his Ominous Sphinx, but he still has a Glyph Keeper in his library. If he finds that, he should be in good shape.
Should end the game pretty quickly.
Yeah, and even if it's forced to trade off, he gets, double value out of it. So if you're Huey here, would you cash in the Jeru's Renunciation just to wait a turn on trading off creatures, or would you just trade and keep it in the graveyard for later?
I think so. It's really tough.
It is tough. Another factor is he has one more, so potentially he could chain them together and get like 6 free damage off the Shepherd, which could definitely change the equation.
Right.
He does decide to go for it there. One worry is if Justin draws Sandblast, then Huey won't buy himself any time because he'll tap the attacking creature, and then when he goes to attack, his creature will get Sandblasted and he'll die on the backswing.
Right.
But it might be the case that he's in such bad shape if Justin draws that anyway that I don't know. There's a lot to think about. Ooh, and there is Sandblast.
There it is.
Have to imagine Justin's going to Sandblast when Huey blocks, right? Because he needs to keep a lethal threat on the battlefield.
He does. It's both players are, just essentially drawing off the top. Have been for a while. We just have to do it. Hope that Huey bricks one more turn.
All right, Huey. So 12 cards in the library. 4 of them are lands where you'd be dead. A Glyph Keeper, another Jeru's Renunciation. Hard for me to think of everything that's in there. But let it be at least a creature that trades and not jumps. Oh, it's an island, so that's going to be Justin winning game 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, Huey fought valiantly. He made an awesome play with the Unsummon. He played really well in this drawn out late game scenario. I think he might have misstepped a little bit on the turn where he cycled to win the combat step.
Right.
He might have been able to play a little more passively there.
Right. Again, easier to say in hindsight, but I agree. Could have at least had some options on that. But I think both players played really well.
Yeah, just definitely.
I really like when Justin fired off the ribbons for 8 instead of playing his creature.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty important.
All right, so what's going to happen in sideboarding here? Does Justin have anything cool on his side? He's highlighted a Fraying Sanity. He's like, wow, if the game goes like it did last time, I really want this.
Yeah.
It would be off the splash and sort of playing with fire against the Abandoned Sarcophagus, but although maybe the Sarcophagus would cause those creatures to be exiled. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, I believe so. I have to read that here, but
if a card with cycling would be put into your graveyard from anywhere and it wasn't cycled, exile it instead. So the Fraying Sanity, you don't have to worry too much about that.
Yeah.
But still,
assuming the Sarcophagus is in play first.
Right. Oh yeah. So if you mill your opponent a bunch and then they play Sarcophagus later, that's trouble.
Yeah.
Justin will have a plan here.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
The thing is, it's not even really my first guess that that's how the games are going to play out. We do just sort of have white-blue flying beatdown against green-white creature deck. So we could very well see like a 6 or 7 turn game in game 2 here. It's hard to predict. One sideboard card that Justin has that's definitely going to be great is Gideon's Defeat here. Just 1 mana, exile many or most of Huey's possible attackers.
Yeah.
Justin has actually taken out one of the Steadfast Sentinels, which makes sense against a deck with 4 bounce spells. The really mana-hungry Eternalized creatures, I think, definitely get a bit worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like the Gideon's Defeat. Honestly, most of Huey's white creatures don't line up particularly well with a lot of Justin's deck. He just has like a lot of 4 toughness guys that are going to be good at blocking. Oketra's Avengers and Solidarity Camels.
Huey's taken out an Unsummon, which certainly a fair consideration with having so many other bounce spells, but it does seem to match up pretty well against Justin's deck. Like, you can get rid of the Eternalized guy, or you can save your own creature from a Sandblast.
Yeah, or stop a Shed Weakness or something like that. Like, it does line up well. Both players with not super exciting looking hands. I guess Huey's got a little bit better.
Yeah, he took a mulligan. I think his opening hand was a 1-lander, but he's doing fine here. Just a couple of bodies to put into play, and then
Justin drew his forest that he needed.
Again, Huey drawing Oketra's Avenger out of sequence.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat asks if 17 lands is too much for Huey's deck, given that he has so much cycling. I know he was a little concerned in deck building with playing 17, but he has to play 2 like sort of colorless lands. It's an If Near Dead lands and a Painted Bluffs, which they splash the backside of Consigned to Oblivion, but mostly he's playing them as deserts for these 2 solitary camels. So his mana is not great. And playing 16 would make that a little worse. Also, just in a team draft, sometimes you don't have a great option for a 24th card. So, yeah, definitely you ask a good question, and it was a consideration, but he decided to go with 17.
Yeah, looking at his deck here, I think, for the reason stated, you go to 17. I mean, I guess Decision Paralysis looks like it might be okay in his deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sam beat me badly with that card.
Yeah, well, it's great in Sam's deck. But yeah, that's often a problem I have in my decks that are heavy cycling, is they flood so easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have a couple cycling lands, it helps that. Like, I think if you replay game 1, but you replace an island and a plains in Huey's deck with a white desert and a blue desert, he probably wins that game.
Oh yeah.
Just, because at the end he ended the game with 14 lands like drawn or in play, and if that had been 12 instead, that obviously can swing a close game like that.
Or just a creature a turn earlier, I mean,
right.
Yeah, those
in this case, the deserts are pretty high value, and in a team draft like this, sometimes it just works out that you can't find on color deserts.
Right. Yeah, it's scary taking deserts over picks, in a 6-man like this, where you're very likely to have to kind of scramble to find cards at the last second.
Right. Okay, so meanwhile, we got a couple of solitary camels facing down a Vitalist and a Tawcrop Elite. Justin's hand's pretty stacked. He's got 1 more creature to add to the battlefield and then 3 tricks that can allow him to win combat. So if he can line those up properly, he'll have a good chance of winning this game. Hugh's got impeccable timing, so we'll see if either player is able to land a really nice, clean combat trick. I get the feeling that Justin's probably going to be able to one-up Huey, especially since it happens to be impeccable timing and not Sandblast in Huey's hands. So,
Yeah.
For example, if Justin blocks and plays a combat trick, Huey goes for impeccable timing. Justin has the second combat trick in response.
Right.
I guess the result could be... No, that would wind up with a 7 toughness creature against probably 3/6 damage. We'll see though. There's a lot of ways this could play out.
Yeah, it just depends, on when it happens. Like right here, impeccable timing looks really great. Like Justin is if he blocks, basically forced to use one of these tricks here. Yeah.
It also would have been interesting if Justin just blocked with the Naga and Huey had first priority. What would he do? Because it's pretty nice way to use your mana to go impeccable timing 2-drop.
Very true.
It's always crazy watching these games from the bird's eye view, because it makes it difficult for me to say what would I do if I was in the position of the players and didn't know my opponent's hand, or didn't even know how they sideboarded. Like Huey might not even know what Justin has left in or brought in from his sideboard. So Justin doesn't even want to put the Harrier Naga in combat. What he does is he uses the Shed Weakness, setting up Active Heroism as a way to race really well with the Exert creature. Huey gets the 2-for-1 trade here, but Justin's still in a nice position for racing.
Yeah, I like that block. I don't like trading away Harrier Naga, if that's the consideration, just given that your hand is so trick heavy. Khopesh lines up pretty well here. But, yeah.
Watching how this game is playing out, the sideboarding from each player, reopens up the question about the unsummon. Like Huey had access to 2 unsummons, grand total of 4 bounce spells. He decided to sideboard out an unsummon, but it seems like it's really good against Justin's combat tricks. So if I was Justin, would I have wanted to board out some of those combat tricks? If I was Huey, would I be more inclined to keep in the unsummon? It's cool to see how the players sideboard against one another.
Yeah. Yeah, and unsummon does look just great at Huey's deck. Even if Justin's hand just wasn't combat tricks, if you just look at like a draw like this where you have a lot of 3-power guys with no evasion, in your hand is unsummon counterspell. Pretty much just lines up with whatever Justin's going to play.
Unsummon, another card that the Pantheon was not unanimous about. Some people on the team loved it. I think Paul Rietzel had a deck that had 5 unsummons, like a blue-red spells deck. But Owen's not the biggest fan. Owen really likes cards that are good in like almost every situation. So he just, the dreaded situation where like you mulligan to 6 and you have 3 lands and 2 unsummons and only 1 business card, and you have to use them in awkward situations. Like that's the type of thing he likes to avoid. So
yeah, where did you land on it?
I think it's quite good. I would say I'd play 1 in all of my blue decks, and I would often play 2. I have a hard time envisioning going up to 5, but there's
5 seems high. Yeah,
there's a time and a place for everything.
I was very high on it going into the PT.
Especially if you believe, like many of our peers, that blue-red spells is one of the best archetypes. Yeah. Do you like unsummon even in your 5-color green decks? Because you mentioned that was one of your favorite things to draft.
I like 1 often. 2 is not great.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 is not great. Your deck needs a lot of mana, and if you can just get these draws where you have 1 creature and then the unsummon just does nothing.
Wow, so this is a great turn for Huey. He unsummons the only blocker, and Justin's ready with 1 of either of his 2 combat tricks, but Huey can counter it with Countervailing Winds and get in for 9.
Yep. Yeah, this does not look good for Justin.
How do you guys feel about the white-green color combination in Hour of Devastation draft?
Well, like I said, I haven't been drafting a ton lately. Going to the PT, I liked it a lot. It didn't look like the cards were very good, but the decks just kept winning. And
yeah, that's sort of been my experience also.
yeah, it's always tough to say like testing early in a set like that because it's often the case that people just haven't really learned how to draft like good control decks yet, or just good mid-range decks, and so you get these white aggro decks that are just crushing because it's easier to put together a curve, right? Than to so.
Do you like Appeal to Authority or Overcome?
I'm way down on Overcome. I was way up on Appeal to Authority. I know that cards come down a bit in other people's estimations from the people I've talked to, but in those white-green decks that I was talking about, it was just very, very good. Okay. These decks that I'm talking about were like Sandwallas and Appeals and just, a low curve and tricks.
Now, when you say you're down on Overcome, are we talking like a card that you will always put in your green decks, but you don't draft high? Or are we talking a card that you could just completely ignore? Like, where on the spectrum do you fall with that?
I functionally end up ignoring it because other people just draft it higher than I do. But
sure,
to be honest, it's a card that I'll take lower than most good creatures and other cheaper tricks, and it could conceivably just not end up in my deck.
Okay. So are you more likely to play something like a Shed Weakness than an Overcome?
I think so, yeah. Sideboarding, that'll change, obviously. Some matchups are just about being able to double spell in a turn, right, and how your creatures line up with theirs. And Shed Weakness can be very good or not so good, depending. So Overcome's certainly better in a lot of spots.
Okay, so on the previous turn, Huey bounced the blocker, attacked with everything. Justin sandblasted, and Huey let it resolve in favor of waiting to counter the creature that came back down. And now we have Huey's turn 7. He has these camels that I have to imagine are attacking into the Top Crop Elite, but he's trying to puzzle out why did Justin not equip the Khopesh. Maybe Justin didn't equip the Khopesh because it just doesn't matter. But
yeah.
Actually, wouldn't be surprised if Huey just took a moment to look over the deck list and think, what does he have for 2 white mana?
Yeah, snap counter. So it might be kind of tough for Huey to deal with.
Yeah, Huey was conservative with the counterspell the last time, but this time I think it would have worked out better for him if he just let his camel die and then countered the spider, because now he's going to have a tough time getting through the 3/5. He can eventually with Floodwaters.
Yep.
Floodwaters could wind up being pretty good here just because it so happens that Justin's choked on green mana. So if Huey bounces 2 green creatures and Justin can only replay 1 at a time.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he's going to get two attacks with the camel through the giant spider. He's going to have to draw something.
Do you attack here if you're Justin?
I would not. I think it's a bit too risky.
Looks like Justin might disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unreasonable. Like, if you just look at the board and the way the cards match up, he's going to leave back a 2/2 Sandwalla, and that would be a favorable trade for him if he's able to block the camel.
Right.
So It makes sense. I mean, especially in these situations where there's not a lot of cards in hand, just making the play that's best on the board is usually a good go-to.
Yeah, so now almost for sure he's going to fire off Floodwaters here.
Yeah, I think so. If he does, it gives him...
Oh, he just waits
to win.
2 creatures. Okay. Oh, wow. And I was just talking about how Gideon's defeat wasn't very good.
Yeah, it could be a game changer here. Especially, I can imagine, like, the Floodwater just gets cast. Huey attacks, then the Giant Spider gets recast, and if Huey has an additional answer, the Gideon's defeat for just 1 mana. Well, it looks like it might not even be that complicated. Justin's just going to attack and sit back on Gideon's defeat.
Yeah. And he does pump. Looks like he's thinking about it. In the face of a Mount Spell, maybe.
Wow, is he really going to cycle the Floodwaters?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's almost... Okay. So if he had done that in Justin's combat, it might have worked out better. But maybe this will just allow Huey to try to get some damage in.
If Huey doesn't attack here, it'd be beautiful. I think it would also be a bit too fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, Huey could bounce his own creature if he wants. He lets it go.
Good draw for Justin.
Yeah, 1 step closer to the Sifter Worm, which will almost definitely put the game away.
Yeah, and it allows him to pump his Sandwalla and still play a green creature if Huey signs in combat.
I'm just not sure what the long-term plan is for Huey. He's got to get 2 hits in, but he has to protect his own life total and win the game before the Sifter Worm comes down. He might...
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to be disappointed that Justin drew a forest because his hope here is that Justin will pump the Sandwalla, he'll bounce it, and then Justin would have to pass without playing a creature. That's a way to swing the race in his favor.
Maybe he's bouncing Kopesh. I mean...
He could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably worse, but sure, he's at least considering it.
And Justin actually just says okay. Justin says okay, and Huey also says okay. Disposal Mummy doesn't do much.
Nope. Well, wrong land.
Would you cycle?
I'd have to look at the deck list. I probably would, but I'm very greedy.
I would cycle too.
Yeah.
Figure you're happy if you draw a spell, you're equal if you draw a land. Oh, he played it. He's not as greedy as either of us.
I guess not, yeah.
Huey knows exactly what's going on when he plays the 7th land there.
Yeah.
He would have. Yeah. I'm a a bit surprised. I don't know, like Huey could have played to the out of drawing a swamp there. He might have just end of turn bounced something, and if he draws one of his 2 black sources, like suddenly the game is going so well for him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He also that's another reason to be playing out your lands here. I think against a green-white deck, Huey shouldn't really be holding lands. Okay, Sifter Worm. We need 4 lands in a row, please.
Steadfast Sentinel. All right.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any outs here.
No.
All right.
Yep.
Justin Cohen beats William Jensen. I noticed just right at the end there that we didn't get updates in our ears, but the match score had been updated. That looked like my teammate Owen Turtenwald finally won 1 match, so you guys are up 3-1, I suppose.
Okay.
But still, definitely a great start for Team Madison, and Peach Garden Oath, including myself, have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I think in particular, I'm going to have to gear up for our match because I don't think my deck matches up particularly well, but I think I'm going to have to win that one if we want to be the winning team tonight.
Yeah, I should probably look at your deck list.
Yeah. So, Matt, we're going to cut to ads. Matt and I are going to study one another's deck lists, and we'll be back for round 5, I guess we'll call it, of tonight's Team Draft Super League.